So I'm going to be speaking about faith today. Reading from Hebrews 11, there's a bunch of great examples of faith in Hebrews 11. I'll be reading only a few. So, it was by faith that Abraham offered Isaac as a sacrifice when God was testing him. Abraham, who'd received God's promises, was ready to sacrifice his only son Isaac, even though God had told him, Isaac is a son through whom your descendants will be counted. Abraham reasoned that if Isaac died, God was able to bring him back to life again. And in a sense, Abraham did receive his son back from the dead. And then we go to Moses. It was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called the son of a Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to share the oppression of God's people instead of enjoying the fleeting pleasures of sin. He thought it was better to suffer for the sake of Christ than to own the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking ahead to his great reward. It was by faith that Moses left the land of Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He kept right on going because he kept his eyes on the one who was invisible. It was by faith that Moses commanded the people of Israel to keep the Passover and to sprinkle blood on the doorposts so that the angel of death would not kill their firstborn sons. It was by faith that the people of Israel went right through the Red Sea as though they were on dry ground. But when the Egyptians tried to follow, they were all drowned. It was by faith that the people of Israel marched around Jericho for 7 days, and the walls came crashing down. And I didn't read here, but it was by faith that Noah built the ark, because God commanded him to. So a couple of things all of these people have in common is, first and foremost, obviously, their faith. But they were all also tasked with things that they could have easily been scared of, that they could have doubted and ran away from what God told them to do. Noah, he lived in a desert. Well, it never rains here, so why is there going to be a flood? I don't need to build this big ark. He could have said that, but he didn't. In faith, he trusted God and did what he was supposed to. With Abraham, as it details here, his only son Isaac, and they were old. They weren't. Abraham and his wife were old. They weren't as easily able to have children. So Isaac was a miracle blessing for them. Anyways, God told them to sacrifice their only son Isaac. And out of faith, Abraham was going to, but God stopped it, as we know. And then Moses, he could have enjoyed in the pleasures owning Egypt, but instead he chose to do what God told him to and flee from that evil and chose to share in the oppression of God's people. As he led the people through the Red Sea, God parted that Red Sea. Before that sea was parted and it was just a big sea, I'm sure people were thinking about running away because there's no way God can split this ocean. But he quite literally split the ocean and they walked on dry ground all the way through. Is by faith that the people of Israel marched around Jericho for 7 days and the walls came crashing down. Those walls, I imagine, were huge. I don't know, I've never been there, but they were huge. And I'm sure the people of Israel were thinking, there's no way we can destroy these walls. They're too powerful for us. Yet God told them to march around the walls for 7 days and shout, and they did exactly that, and the walls came crashing down. So the point is there's two things here. These people could have given in to their fear and their doubts and run away from what God told them to do, or, as they did, trust in their faith, have faith in their God, and do what he said for them to do. Because a lot of the times, what God asks us to do, what the right thing is to do for God, is not always the easiest thing. I know in my life, especially as of recently, there have been things that are not easy things to do, not easy things to deal with. And it would be easier to run away from those problems rather than doing what God wants and running towards him. But like I just said, sometimes the right thing is not always the easiest thing to do. So I'm gonna leave y'all with two verses here. First one being Isaiah 41:10. says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be anxious, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." So that speaks volumes. We need to not fear because God is with us. We don't need to be anxious because, well, He's our God and He holds everything, the future, past, present, everything. And He holds our situation as well and its outcomes. So, and I'll also leave you with Psalms 27:14. It says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage." Yes, wait for the Lord. That's also another thing all these people had in common, most of them anyway, is having to wait for the Lord. Especially the people of Israel marching around the walls of Jericho. They had to wait. They waited for God out of faith, doing what He said, and waited for Him. And God did what He promised. Same with the Red Sea. Same with Moses. Same with Abraham. Same with Noah and the ark. And that was another thing I wanted to talk about that I didn't. We need to not give into our fear. We need to have faith, do what God tells us to, and wait patiently for Him with no anxiousness and no fear, because, well, He's our God and He is faithful to do what He promised. So I hope this message helps. Well, first, I hope it makes sense, and I hope it helps whoever God brings this video to. God bless.